Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, Attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and today our very special guest is kscott with CarePartners of Texas. And we like having you guys on because y'all always have such good information. And so I appreciate that immensely. But today we're going to talk about caring for our caregivers. And for me, that's a hugely important topic because I'm all about taking care of caregivers. Because most of them, I find in my office, they don't take care of themselves. So let's talk. Let's kind of walk you through some things. And so, because just when you thought things were getting back to what we call normal, not a new normal, just normal, COVID has reared its ugly head again in a different avenue. And so, how do you think this has impacted, the caregivers that we have here in Houston?
Well, we know that caregivers are providing the majority of the care for our older adults. They are providing 83% of all the care, all the unpaid family members. And one of the things that we've seen is for these families, we've seen increased isolation due to COVID. All of their support systems have been taken away in some ways. They don't have socialization anymore. We don't have the ability to connect with strong support networks like we used to. So if you think about COVID here in Houston, a lot of the support systems were no longer being able to be accessed. So 2 dementia-specific adult day centers, the only 2 in Houston, were closed for 6 months to a year. And so families were really without any help. And we know that isolation can be really detrimental on their physical health and well-being, their emotional health and well-being. And then COVID also really had a huge financial impact for many of us, but particularly for caregivers. If they were able to find care, it had to be in-home care, and that's much more expensive. Or many of them had to quit their jobs simply to be able to provide care to their loved one that could no longer go to the places they normally went.
I know that's been really difficult. Just a lot of even my older clients have had a huge difficulty with, being able to, to do things and, get up and get around and be, outgoing and things like that. And so what is CarePartners doing to help as far as support and services, for caregivers to help them through this time right now?
Yes, we had a wonderful opportunity to be able to pivot all of our in-person online opportunities. So instead of our gathering places, which are normally in-person, multi-hour programs at various locations throughout Houston, where individuals with dementia can go and be a part of a larger community, instead of it being in person, we transitioned it to online. So we were able to do the gathering place in your home. We delivered activity packets. We were able to provide programming with our trained staff online on a weekly basis. We did the same thing with our support groups, as well as our educational programs. So we've hosted conferences, workshops throughout this entire pandemic. Now, we've had the opportunity to start reopening some of our in-person programs. By October, we should have about 30 different gathering places, those respite on-site programs, open. Now, all of them are going to be different depending on the partner that we're working with. We work with a variety of congregations and faith communities. And some of those programs are going to be in person, socially distanced with masks. Some might not be. And so we're able to really adapt to the comfort level of the families we serve.
Well, that's perfect because I know people are really ready, to get, back out there. And so I know I was excited just to be able to get out, and do things that hadn't been able to do in a while, and for sure. And so I've been very familiar with CarePartners for a long time, and and done everything we could to help your process. So I'm super excited that the gathering places is going to be able to, open back up and things. Because I know a lot of people really look forward to that, even if it's just on a monthly basis, just getting out and having someone kind of keep an eye on their loved ones and giving them, that time, they might not have otherwise. And so, but CarePartners does a lot of things. And so let's talk about that. And what other kind of programs does CarePartners have?
Well, I'd love to back up and talk a little bit about what caregivers need in general. I had the privilege of doing a variety of focus groups with caregivers in a variety of situations, from caregivers focused on dementia, caregivers of individuals with chronic conditions. And in those focus groups, we asked a question. We said, what can help you on your caregiver journey? What's going to be beneficial to you? And they said 3 things. Those were the 3 top themes that came across. The first is information. They want to know the right stuff at the right time. I'm sure you hear that all the time. Another thing I've heard in my almost 15 years doing this is, I want that win. So they're looking for information. And so what CarePartners does to respond to that is we have these workshops, we have conferences with multiple speakers from multiple different topics, including legal and financial assistance. We have folks giving examples of how to provide different activities for individuals with dementia. So we really want them to be equipped with the knowledge to be able to serve their loved one as best they can. The next thing that I heard in that focus group was that people want connection. They really want to connect with someone else. The anecdote I always share is I had a friend whose mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease in her 50s. And I coached her through it, talked with her every day for about 2 weeks. And I said, you need to go to a support group. You really need to talk with people that are going through this. And she went to that support group and she said, that was better than the 2 weeks I spent talking with you.
Wow.
Once my ego got over that, I remembered this is why, because you want to be connected with someone that completely understands what's happening. You want to be connected with someone that understands what you're going through. In the same way that a lot of neighborhoods now have parents groups or grandparents groups or other interest groups, you need that connection for family caregivers. Because as we saw in COVID, there was a lot of isolation. As we see in general caregiving, people feel isolated. They want to feel heard and understood. So CarePartners does that through our Common Ground support groups. So these are offered at a variety of different locations across Houston. There is a trained volunteer facilitator, and then caregivers can come and talk about their caregiving journey, share how they feel, share exactly where they are in that moment, and feel understood. And then the third thing that I learned in these focus groups was that caregivers need a break, what we call respite. We always use the respite term around, and respite can be anything from a weekend away to just 5 minutes of sanity, just taking a 5-minute nap or a power nap, just to kind of give yourself a restart and a reset. And so CarePartners really looks at respite in a couple of different ways. So we have our gathering place programs. As we said, we offered them online, throughout the pandemic, and we're now moving back to our in-person programs. But the gatherings are 3.5-hour programs at a variety of partner locations throughout Houston, where the individual with dementia can go and participate in a variety of socialization activities, fun stuff. We've got entertainment, we've got food, we've got lunch. And they can be a part of something as well while their caregiver takes that break. And what that break looks like is completely dependent upon the caregiver. Sometimes the caregiver participates simply because at least they're not having to do the care, but they want to be there, but they don't have that burden of caring. Sometimes they go home to take a nap. Sometimes they go to the grocery store, and sometimes they go to those Common Ground support groups. And then another way we offer this respite is through our program called Second Family. And this is respite care inside of the home provided by volunteers. So our volunteers will go into the home of someone, does not have to be someone with dementia, and will sit with them, be a companion with them. Sometimes they'll take them to the grocery store. Sometimes they will do an activity with them. And again, it gives that caregiver a few hours of a break that they need to continue to thrive. And so across all of our programs, we utilize about 1,800 volunteers to serve 3,500 caregivers as well as care partners. So those are the individuals that they're caring for.
So I had my next question, and now I'm thinking I want to back up just a minute. So let me ask you this. If I want to be a volunteer, to be one of those people that'll go in for a couple hours and help somebody out, how do I do that, and what kind of training do I need?
So what you would do is you can call our Care Partners office, or if there's one of our locations that you're already affiliated with. So many of our locations, all of our locations are actually with faith-based communities, congregations. Across Houston, we have 81 different partners. And so you can call us and we can match you with someone in the general area. And then we provide you with training. So we have multi-session training for initial training, which how do you run activities? How do you work with someone with dementia? How do you work with an older adult, respecting their individuality and your individuality? And then we offer continuing education for all of our volunteers and teams throughout the year. We do things that are called your gathering table, which is where you can learn activities. Then we also do some general continuing education at our conferences, sometimes specifically for our volunteers.
That's awesome. That's great. And so how can we help our caregivers? What can we do better to support our caregivers?
What we can do in Houston is really come together as service providers. Partnerships are the key to serving family caregivers. There are so many caregivers in the greater Houston area. I always quote former First Lady Rosalind Carter when said, "You're either a caregiver, you were a caregiver, you will be a caregiver, or you're going to be cared for." And so there are too many caregivers. There's no reason for us to be competitive about how we're serving folks. And so partnerships are really, truly the way to do this. And so you can partner in simple ways with education programs. Care Partners has worked with you and other fantastic organizations to provide the right education at the right time for families. But you can also go deeper. Do we have warm connection relationships with other care providers where if I can't meet your need, can I refer them to someone else and they're not being bounced around and, answering phone calls and doing crazy phone trees? We need to be able to have a continuous connection. The other thing we really need to focus on is making sure our caregivers can find out information about all of these programs. So one calendar, one place where they can go and access the resources here locally is really important. So a community calendar that has all of these educational programs, all of these resources in one place is really going to be our next step in how we need to step up in Houston to better serve and connect our families.
So I know that people are listening and thinking, okay, I really want to get involved. And so do you send them to the website, to the phone number? Tell us how we can get you.
Absolutely. Head to our website. It's carepartnerstexas.org. There are very easy buttons. You can find help. You can help. You can learn more about us. You can find out about all of our educational conferences. We tried to make it easy for you to access what you need. And so just visit our website and you'll be able to find us. We also are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Perfect. And your email address?
My email address is kscott@carepartnerstexas.org. You're always welcome to email me, or you can give me a call at 713-682-5995.
And so this has been awesome, as always. Tons of good information. So Katie, I appreciate it immensely. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
You're welcome. I look forward to continuing our partnership.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.